In a world dominated by sports podcasts, three friends team up to bring you another one. Driven by the incessant need to argue with one another, the Context Matters podcast will toe the line between what they believe and what they believe will piss off their friend. Listen and enjoy as the group chat you never wanted to read becomes the podcast you hardly want to listen to. The bits are long, the rage bait is real, and the context matters.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us on episode 8, and we will be stepping into the octagon and fighting over our wide receiver rankings. It's Monday, February 23rd. I'm Bill. With me, as always, are David and J-Mo. How we feeling, boys?
I am feeling fantastic. I leave for Florida in a couple days, and I can't wait to get out of this snow.
I hate you. It's going to be snowing tonight, so I hope when you guys are shoveling and plowing, you guys are listening or watching this.
It's a good point.
Absolutely.
And while we're on that topic, make sure if you're listening and watching and you are liking what you see, to go and follow us on whatever platform you'd like. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. We got our Facebook group, everything else that goes with that. Thank you for supporting us up until now. We hope that you keep supporting us. And like I said before, if you have people that you think might like the show, go ahead and drop a link to them, and maybe we can get this thing going a little bit more.
Absolutely. And feel free to comment too. So comment. I know we're talking about some things that everybody has pretty strong opinions on. So today we're going to talk about wide receiver ranking, some other things. Master Debater seemed to have a pretty good hit in the first episode. We're going to be coming back with round 2. So make your comments. Talk about how those debates went, what side you went with. So feel free to comment and let us know. We read and respond to all the comments. So we'd love to hear them.
Yep.
On today's slate, we will be talking about our consensus wide receiver rankings for 2026. A few weeks after talking about what actually makes a number one, we're finally going to maybe come to the table and discuss that. Then we will be talking hot topics from items around the NFL, bringing back Master Debater for round 2, getting into conspiracies with David's Cooky Corner, and end the show with a little segment called Anything Else, where we touch on, you guessed it, anything else. But first, a word from our presenting sponsor, Hyatt Trucks.
Are you tired of dealing with unreliable waste removal services, or worse, the weekly dump trip? Say hello to Hyatt Trucks Waste Removal, Southern New Hampshire's top choice for dependable disposal. Based in Milford, New Hampshire, they serve Hillsborough County and beyond, including Milford, Nashua, Bedford, Manchester, and Peterborough. They're a family-owned business with over 50 5-star Google reviews, are fully insured, and ready to handle any waste removal needs. They offer flexible roll-off dumpster rentals for any project, big or small, and are joining us just before your annual spring cleaning project. Hyatt offers comprehensive junk removal services, hauling away furniture, appliances, yard waste, and more. But let's talk about what can really make a difference in your week. Hyatt offers weekly curbside trash pickup to Milford, New Boston, Bedford, Jaffrey, Peterborough, New Ipswich, and surrounding towns beginning at just $40 a month. With provided barrels, options for recycling, and reliable pickups on time, every time. Ready to join the Hyatt Trucks family? Head to HIOTT-TRUX.com and sign up using code CONTEXT to let them know we sent you. Hyatt Trucks. You chuck it, we truck it, making waste removal simple and stress-free.
Thank you for that, JMO. And yeah, huge shout out again to TJ and Hyatt Trucks. Please make sure to use that code context. It helps let them know that we sent you over there. So please, for any trash, recycling, weekly pickup, or one-time ad hoc needs, please make sure to use Hyatt Trucks. Getting into today's first conversation, we've had a lot of discussion about what truly makes a number one wide receiver. My personal take on it is if you had each team draft a wide receiver, each team gets one wide receiver in that first round. So in my opinion, we have 32 number one wide receivers. So I asked Jeremiah and David here, as well as myself, to rank who you thought was the top 32 NFL wide receivers. And we'll be just talking about the consensus among us and talk about maybe have some discussions on where some people ranked other people lower or higher, and I think it'll lead to some fun discussions. Any intro from you guys before we get into the list?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very much on the fantasy football side of things where a number one wide receiver would be the top 10 or top 12 just because that's how many teams are in the league. But I will shift my mentality a little bit. As we talk about it, we'll make sure that we're clear with what we mean when we say it.
Yeah. And I only
Absolutely.
have like 6, 7 guys. And then it seemed after that, it was really, really tough to kind of,
God, I hate it here.
I didn't even do that on purpose, to kind of find a home for everybody else. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it lays.
Yeah, and I'll just say I'm interested in real football, not fantasy football. But I'm actually going to jump the gun, and instead of talking about our number one consensus wide receiver, I will talk about 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time because we, without talking to each other, ranked the top 3 identically. So all 3 of us had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Puka Nacua in that order as our top 3 wide receivers. Any comments on that, boys?
I mean, what can you say about these 3 guys? Jamar Chase, the second that he stepped in, and Justin Jefferson, the second that they stepped on a football field, they were obviously different from everybody else around them. They were great in college. They played together. They were great in the NFL right off the bat. And then Puka with a little bit of a different story, not kind of having that pedigree when he got drafted, but making that difference the second he stepped onto the field, like these other guys, breaking all kinds of records for, fastest wide receiver to this amount of yards and blah, blah, blah. So all 3 of them, when you watch them play, they're in a league of their own. And so there's not really a whole lot to go off of there. I don't think anybody's arguing that.
Yeah. When I was looking at the list, Jamar was obviously number 1 because especially what he did this past season. Obviously, Burrow was hurt for most of it. You had backups come in like Flacco. And what did he get? Like 16 catches in one game, I think, against the Steelers. And he's still like insanely dominant with whoever's throwing the ball. And that's obviously a true sign of the best player in the league. And then second was JJ. Same kind of story. Like he had more success with Kirk Cousins throwing, and ever since it's a little bit more rocky, but he'll get his looks, and he's still insanely dominant with whoever's throwing the ball. And then Puka, it was tough to put him at 3. He is insanely dominant, and he has Stafford throwing the ball, so both of those kind of led him to that 3. Where him and Jason for me are like neck and neck as far as getting that 3 because of Stafford.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And talking about the Justin Jefferson Jettas conversation, when we talked about how we were going to rank these wide receivers, it wasn't purely based on production in 2025. This was looking into 2026 and talking specifically about talent, not necessarily about the production we expect to see in 2026, but who we expect to make the biggest impact in their role on their specific team. So talking about somebody like Jettas, you have 9 throwing you the ball. That's that's a bad lot in life compared to like Jamar obviously has Joe Burrow, although I'd argue Joe Burrow has Jamar. And I think that's a bigger aspect of Joe Burrow's success than Joe Burrow is to Jamar. But then, so I just wanted to make sure that we're clear. We're talking about the talent of the specific wide receiver and putting another wide receiver in their slot. It's hard to separate the production from the receiver necessarily, but I wanted to do the best at that. So that's why, we talked all about how Puka and JSN were a 2-man show. They weren't number 1 or number 2 for either of the 3 of us. So I think that's important to take off rip.
Yep, I agree.
So getting into our 4th consensus wide receiver, David and I ranked him 4th, Jeremiah ranked him 5th, and it is that aforementioned JSN. So the Emerald City route artist, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Gross.
I don't really have much to say other than he is one of the more. I just want to say, like, he doesn't necessarily jump off the page, but his catch radius is insane for his size. And that's the one thing that I'm always amazed when watching him. It's just like you think he's overthrown, or you think the ball's way too far behind him, and his catch radius compared to his size is just insane. He's not Megatron size, but he seems to have a similar catch radius.
Yeah. He's definitely faster than you think he is, and he has excellent route running abilities, which helps him separate and do everything he does. He's my 4 because he has Darnold throwing on the ball, where if him and Puka were switched, I mean, who knows the possibilities. But Darnold had like, I don't know how many passing yards he had, but JSN probably had like a
30.
third of his passing yards. So, I mean, just considering that alone, and I mean, there's not a whole lot of other weapons on that team. So, yeah, I think he's right now the 4th best.
Yeah, I think, I ranked him at 5 because I want to see him do it a little bit more. Like his rookie year, he didn't do anything, and I think that was more of a scheme and a coach issue. And then he started coming on with the second year. So, and now in the third, like he's done enough for me to obviously have him pretty high on the list. But yeah, you touched on it. The biggest thing with JSN is that he commands so many targets. And there are times where if you have a bad team and you have an okay player, he's just going to get a lot of targets and whatever. But truly the best receivers command the most targets because they're good. It's not that sometimes you'll get somebody's stats piled up because they have all those targets, but with Jackson Smith and Jigba, he had a almost 36% target share, which led the NFL by a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, that means over a third of every single pass from that team is going to him. And we're talking about dump offs and throws to the tight end and scheming other people open. So even with all that, 35.82% target share. That's unreal.
Yeah, and it's just his Emerald City Road artist in him. He can get open in just about any defensive scheme that he sees. Man zone doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he's lined up wide. Doesn't matter if he's lined up in the slot. He's a talent. Getting into the next name. So Jeremiah, you had this guy ranked above JSN. So Jeremiah had him 4th. I had him just behind JSN at 5th. David had him at 7th. So we're going to Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, I love Amon-Ra. I mean, he is just a model for consistency. I'm pretty sure. So, like, he had his rookie year, he had some developing that he had to do, and then he's got his next 4 years after that. If I remember this correctly, he had a fantasy football finish of wide receiver 3 every single one of those years. So, consistency is huge with that. He can play at all levels of the field. He has short route ability, and he has the yak. He can make long plays down the field. He can get in the end zone. Since that rookie year, obviously, like, again, he was developing, but he still had on the 9 games that he started, he still had 900 yards. But every year after that, he's had over 1,000 yards, including a year with 1,500 yards, and then last year with 1,400 yards. Double-digit touchdowns the last 3 years in a row. I know it's not the flashiest thing. He's not making the same plays as Jamar Chase, but again, consistency is key with Amon-Ra. He's always there, always dependable, always going to be playing through injury, which we saw a lot. He's just a tough dude, and he wants to win the ball every single time, and you see it on the field.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said makes a lot of sense. The only reason why I had him, I mean, like I said, there's only like 7 guys I have, and then it's the rest, and he fits in that 7. The only thing I had against him was there's so much talent on that team. And he is a piece, but there's so much other things as like a defense that you have to worry about. Which, I mean, he still obviously produces. He's still an insane talent, but having the David Montgomerys, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, I forget the tight end, but they have a tight end that's real. Yeah, Laporta is really good,
and Tesla.
Goff's decent. Goff's good enough to get the job done, but yeah, I mean, he's still insanely productive and. Seems like any offense you can put him in, he'll find a role and produce.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting. And Dave, I will save one comment for somebody further down the list because you had somebody ranked ahead of Amon-Ra that is our consensus number 23 wide receiver. So I think we're going to get into some discussion when we get there. Just a little tease there. I think two sides of the same coin, though. It's interesting for you to say that about how the Lions have a lot of other pieces, because I kind of counted that as a positive for Amon-Ra because he's been so consistent, even with losing touches to Gibbs, Montgomery. It's two sides of the same coin. You're not wrong. It's just an interesting, different way to look at it. Because I was looking at it as he's still getting his numbers with Jameson Williams, with Laporta, with Tesla, with David Montgomery, with Jahmyr Gibbs. Like I just thought it was a model of consistency. But I get your point. It kind of opens up the playbook, whereas other wide receiver ones I mean, I'll say Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase isn't a good example because at least he has T. Higgins on the other side that's demanding somewhat of a defensive scheme around him. But I thought that was interesting. Moving on to the next name, CD Lamb. So I had him ranked number 6th, Jeremiah had him ranked number 6th, and David had him ranked number 5th. I feel like I put him at 6th more because of his name. Honestly, I think I'm honestly a little bit lower on CD Lamb, so I'm interested in your take where you had him at 5th, Dave.
I think CD is insanely good, and I did not think much of him when he came out of college. I thought he was overdrafted, and I thought he was kind of overrated, but it seems like every year he produces, every time you watch the Cowboys, like he's the cog in that offense. Like, yeah, he was hurt for this year. Pickens kind of took over that role for him, but before he had Pickens, like he was the guy, and he's the only real threat on that Cowboys offense before Pickens. But yeah, that's why I had him ranked above Amon-Ra, because he did it for him by himself for a lot longer, which I know it's projecting into the 26th season, but I don't know. I think he's got the size. He's a freak athlete, and this is all talent based. So, and he has like Dak. Say what you want about the Cowboys offense and Dak. I think Dak's pretty good, and he has games where he's on fire, and it always benefits CD Lamb.
I think Dak's arguably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. So
For sure.
Yeah, Dak can definitely get it done, and that's the thing with CD. I think this was his 6th year. Last year was his 6th year in the NFL, which is crazy. But yeah, CD. The biggest thing with CD is his ability to separate from everybody. A lot of the times, you'll see it from the point of view of the TV, where you see Dak at the offensive line, you see him throw the ball, and then they'll pan down the field, and it's CD open by like 6 or 7 yards.
Yeah, it's crazy. It happens every time.
Yeah, he's insanely good. He's insanely good against press coverage, which is a big deal because, a lot of people can't necessarily beat that, or they get hurt by that quite a bit. But with CD, like, again, he's obviously very consistent, but his high end ability is right up there with everybody else. In 2023, he had 181 targets, 1,749 receiving yards. He had 87 first downs, which is
Holy
crazy.
smokes.
Like, that's the biggest thing. He's the go-to guy on third down, and he's there for a reason. So, he gets those targets frequently. He's not always there. He's not really their main touchdown guy. Yeah, they like to use Jake Ferguson and a couple other guys. Last year they just really like to run the ball around the goal line, but his ability to separate, the years when he's healthy, he has that high end ability that some players just don't necessarily have. Like, as much as I love Amon-Ra, I think that if they were to have the best seasons they were physically capable of producing, I think CD would end up better than Amon-Ra in that very specific scenario. So that's why I like CD so much. And again, we have to remember last year he played a lot of games. He played 14 games, but he was hampered by injuries, a lot of that. And even the end of last year, he had some shoulder injuries that he just kept playing through, even though he probably shouldn't have. So he's a tough guy and he plays through injuries, but I think some of the box score stats is misleading because of the amount of injuries he's had to play through thus far.
yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's all fairly good points. Again, I think I'm a little bit lower on him than most are. I do think Dak is an insanely talented thrower of the football, and underrated at that. And I think he has benefited from that. But I think they both benefited from each other. So I'm not out here making any wild claims about CD. But moving on to next, our 7th ranked wide receiver. We're back in consensus. We all ranked him number 8 was AJ Brown. So this is going to be my start of talking about how overrated Jalen Hurts is. So going from Scott to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is awful. So I think AJ Brown is a specimen. He had a case of the Quentin Johnsons. I mean, the drops last year at a few points. So he has been known to do that, but he can make some big football catches, like in terms of like big man hands, football catches that are as impressive as anybody else in the NFL.
Yeah, big bank take, little bank for sure. One of the biggest things with AJ Brown this year was he had over 100 targets per usual, but he only ended with 78 catches for just over 1,000 yards, 1,003 to be exact. And we talked previously about how that compared to how Alec Pierce got his 1,003 yards. But I think, a lot of that had to do with the offense and Jalen Hurts. And I mean, when Jalen Hurts was only throwing, there's so many games where Jalen Hurts was throwing for sub 150 yards. So how can AJ Brown produce with numbers like that? But yeah, the reality is when you see him on the field, he looks bigger. He is bigger. He looks faster. He is faster. Like, all those things are true. He is a dominant force. And yeah, if you have to line up with him single coverage, good luck. You're not winning.
Yeah, you put him. Same thing with Justin Jefferson. I'm not knocking him for having a horrible quarterback. Dave?
Yeah. AJ Brown is obviously a freak. He is at this spot for me because of the projection, hoping he goes to a different team and he gets more looks, or Jalen Hurts figures it out, because he's definitely a guy that you have to get in rhythm with the game flow. Like, you got to get him a lot of touches early, and then he can get going and start producing more and more. Where the problems with the Eagles last year is they'd only really use him on like shot plays or chunk plays. They never really like took the 5 yards here to get him just
The
accustomed
quick
to
hitch
catching.
to get his hands on the ball. Yeah, absolutely.
He's definitely a guy that has to see it come in and catch a couple, and then he warms up. But yeah, he's an unreal talent. I hope he goes to a real contender. We can really see him shine when it matters.
For sure. I think that's underrated, Dave. The point you made there. I think if you've never played football before, or if you're just watching a box score, something that you don't really understand is how hard it is to be a wide receiver and run 40 routes in a game and get 1 or 2 targets, and then that 41st is a contested catch down the field, 38-yard post with a safety coming over the top. Like, it's so hard to go from I'm literally just out here running shadow boxing with a corner to okay, now I have to go make a big play when I haven't seen the ball in 3 quarters.
Yep.
Just one of those interesting things that you have to live with when Jalen Hurts is throwing check down Charlies all game.
True.
Next on the list, we have 8th. We have Nico Collins. So Jeremiah and I both had him at 10th, and David had him at 13th. So I think Nico Collins is one of those, you want to talk about playing through injuries or suffering from injuries, but when he is on the field, he is an insane freak athlete and just one of the better, like, deep ball, but still a true number 1 receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's perfect that we ranked him there because he reminds me a lot of AJ Brown because of that ability. Same thing, like it's the guy that you see winning these contested catches and just looking bigger and stronger than everybody. But then also, you'll see CJ Stroud throw a ball down the sideline, and it's Nico Collins with an arm and a half's length away from the DB, running faster than them to get under the ball. So again, immensely talented. Has all the physical traits and has been putting it together for a couple years now. So he's got that consistency box checked off as well.
Yeah, I had him ranked low, I'll be honest, because I don't watch Texans a lot. So, but
Fair.
he's obviously a stud and a freak in his own aspect, and he's like a great possession receiver. So he definitely deserves to be where you guys ranked him.
Yeah, I mean, 6'4", 222. The guy's an absolute animal, and so when he gets and again, like, he's not the type that's going to finish a year. He's not going to have a crazy Puka or JSN year with 1,500 yards, but like the 11 to 1,300 yards that he's capable of getting, they're all going to come in clutch moments. They're going to be more difficult catches. Honestly, they don't necessarily scheme him open. They just hope and pray and throw it to him, and he just makes it work every time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out Steve Hodgson. He's one of those guys who just Nico Collins doesn't look as fast as he is on the field, but those strides are just longer than anyone else on the field. He makes it look effortless when he's running right by guys.
Yep.
9th, we have the 2-yard touchdown merchant. So I ranked him 11th. David ranked him 11th. Jeremiah ranked him 15th. And I think the fact that it's 11th, and 15th, and he's our consensus number 9 shows you that we're going to have some interesting conversations as we get further down this list. But it's Devontae Adams. So he is just, you want to talk about contested, thank you. You want to talk about contested catches. He is an insane jump ball, goal line fade weapon. And I think that's why the Rams used him in that way so much. Stat Padford or whatnot, but he is. I think he's going to be one of those receivers who ages gracefully because I think he can continue doing what he did this year for a few more years.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, I mean, he's like very similar to me with Chad Ochocinco in the sense that like his feet are insane. The way that he runs a route is better than anybody in the NFL. And you still see it at a degraded speed at an older age. He's still getting open, and the catches that he makes on the sideline are unreal. He always knows exactly where he is on the field. You're never going to see him like, if you have 8 or 9 yards to the first, you see people all the time, they'll run a comeback route or an out route and they're right on the line or a little before the line and they don't get the first just because of positioning. That'll never happen with Davante Adams. He is always going to make the play in the right spot. And again, just that ability to get open, knowing that he's not as fast as he used to be, and he just adds that in his offseason workout. He's like, okay, this is what I have to do now to get open, and then he does it. So great talent, and he's a great guy. I like him. You guys like him. Everybody listening, you all like him. Don't say you don't, because you're lying. Davante Adams is great.
Yeah, and he could be a one anywhere he goes. That's what I like about him the most. His style of play translate to every team, every quarterback. He's super friendly in that aspect. So I definitely like him a lot, and he still manages to put up great numbers in a competitive offense with Puka next to him and Stafford throwing the ball. Like you said, like it's too easy, the goal line packages that he's in. If they're playing off coverage on a goal line run, like, yeah, why not just throw a 2-yard slant to him? If it's like that easy, might as well just do it.
And it's 14 touchdowns we're talking about. He had 14 touchdowns. That is not a small amount.
That's insane.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, so you compared him to Ocho Cinco, and I think that's a really good comparison in how they play. And important for people to know is he's 25 pounds heavier than Chad Ochocinco was at his playing weight.
Mhm.
So he can also throw around a big body at the same height. So he can throw around the big body, and that's a lot of what you see with those box out goal line fades.
Yep.
That's a good point. At number 10th, Jeremiah ranked him number 9. David ranked him number 17. I was right in the middle at 12. Is Falcons Drake London. We talked about him a lot in our group chat this week, based on him and talking about the guy who's going to come right next, who I said was better than him. But he's one of those talents that I feel like a lot of people don't know because he plays for the Falcons, who are not a very good team and not a very well televised team, especially up here in the Northeast. But he's a dog. He's a baller. He's a true number one in my opinion. He could go anywhere and put up crazy numbers. He did all this with Penix throwing him the ball most of the year, and then Kirk Cousins, and then that offense had a lot of success once Kirk Cousins slotted in there. Hopefully New England can get a guy like Kirk Cousins to start for them. But
here we go again.
Every episode, the Drake syndrome lives on.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I like Drake London a lot. I mean, it's funny because he's 6'4", 215 pounds. So he's a lighter guy, but 6'4", and you see it on the field. He's a monster. And when we're talking about, if we talk about the mid 2000s wide receivers, 6'4" would kind of be like, all right, so whatever. But now today's game has changed immensely. So a lot of the guys coming out are much shorter than that. A lot of the wide receivers are sitting right around 6 feet. And, you see somebody who's 6'2", and people are like, oh, he's huge. Well, again, Drake London is 6'4", massive guy. And, he's still able to win. And it's not just a deep ball thing, a contested catch, whatever. He is another guy that can really get open on his routes. He's smart with it. He has very good hands. And so he played again, another guy, unfortunately, this is a theme, but another guy that played injured last year. He only played 12 games. In those 12 games, he managed to get just over 900 receiving yards. So well on pace to get 1,000 receiving yards, and he had 7 touchdowns at that. He's definitely the wide receiver one for that team. He's dependable. He's go-to. They love to use him on third down packages. And it's just a guy, again, I hope to see that his touchdowns come up the last couple of years. They have. I think that part of the reason that it's not there is because they have Bijan and Tyler Algier, who was, I know this is a wide receiver segment, but Tyler Algier snuck in a lot of touchdowns last year when they got close. So, that's
Kyle
kind
Pitts.
of exactly in Kyle Pitts. So that's kind of the reason why, if you're looking at this is one of the perfect examples of, if you're looking at a box score or box stats, you're not going to necessarily see the love for Drake London. But if you, for whatever reason, turn on a Falcons game to watch one of those, you're going to see that he is the best player on the field 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I think I ranked him low because, again, I don't really watch him often. I did see him this year when he played the Patriots. He ate up Christian Gonzalez, and I was pretty impressed. But like you said, he's 6'4", he's a big body. He can be a number one on a lot of teams and have success on a lot of teams. And almost playing for the Falcons hurts his ability to produce.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially with Penix.
Yep, he's another guy that ended the season with 30% for the games that he played, a 30% target share, which, again, almost a third of every pass is going to him. So another leader in that, because they have other weapons, but if they're throwing the ball, that's who they're looking to get it to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Do you guys get the understanding that they're going to run with Penix to begin the season?
I don't think so, because his knees are still hurt, aren't they? Doesn't he still have like a torn ACL he's coming off of or something?
He does. I think that if the latest that I heard was that he should be good to go. If that's delayed, they're likely going to bring in a bridge quarterback. As we had talked about previously, they're going to probably bring in a veteran, because Kirk Cousins likely isn't going to be there, and they're not going to draft a rookie and put a rookie in that position. So if anything, it's going to be, if they don't think that he's good to go, they'll bring in that veteran presence.
I'd love to see
more
Flacco.
likely than not. Yeah. Yeah, that would.
Throw Flacco in there?
Seem to make the most sense.
Jameis Winston.
Oh, don't get me going on Jameis. I love him so much.
They'd go 8-8 or 8-9, and he'd get 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks, and it would be great to see.
I mean, I'll tell you who they're not going to go with is their backup quarterback. And Billy, you know this guy, Easton Stick, former Charger backup.
Not going with him. Great clipboard holder.
Yeah, exactly. He is not going to be the guy that they start with, I don't think. I think that there's better options out there. So,
absolutely. On to the next name. So I had him ranked 7th. He is the 11th ranked wide receiver by our consensus. David had him all the way back at 19th. Jeremiah in the middle at 13th. It is, we've talked about him a couple times, the breakout star from this year, in my opinion, George Pickens. So obviously we're talking about going into 2026, and we're talking about talent related. He is a head case. He's a diva. He's known for spinning the ball on the Pittsburgh Steelers game when the time was running out, and he absolutely cost them a game by showboating a first down when it didn't matter. So he's not someone I necessarily want on my team personality wise, but holy hell is he an impressive athlete. He is insane. Yep. Even when CD went down, especially when CD went down, he was torching teams. And even with CD in there, he was also torching teams. He never really got the love he needed in Pittsburgh to show out as a true number one. But I think those offenses have been kind of borderline awful in Pittsburgh since Big Ben retired. And I think going to an actual good team in a good situation, we saw exactly what George Pickens was capable of. And I think we'll see more of that in 2026, wherever he winds up.
Yeah, David, you want to touch on this first?
Yeah, you're saying Arthur Smith couldn't get production out of a wide receiver?
Shocker.
Player? Oh my God. So I mean, I have him ranked like below DJ Moore and like above Alec Pierce. I think him and Alec Pierce are a lot more similar. Like, obviously Pickens is way more talented, but I don't know. You put Alec Pierce next to CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott, I'm sure it looks pretty similar.
I'm not saying Alec Pierce wouldn't put up good numbers next to CeeDee Lamb in Dallas.
No, I know.
I'm saying he wouldn't be able to do what George Pickens would do, especially when CeeDee Lamb's out. Like that's insane. That's an insane comment comparing him to Alec Pierce.
What about DJ Moore?
DJ Moore, Alec Pierce.
I like DJ Moore better.
I can't wait to tell you about all the reasons I hate DJ Moore. But
Okay.
Sticking
don't
that's
even.
okay. Sticking with George Pickens for now. So like as much as like I don't think that George Pickens is better than Drake London, but there's certainly an argument that can be made there. And I don't have a problem with that. With George Pickens, he ran 609 routes in the NFL this year. That was good for top four. I think he was number 4 in that. So like he is on the field a lot. The biggest thing when he was in Pittsburgh, I saw him as a deep play guy only. And I think he changed my mind playing in Dallas because he wasn't just a deep play guy. He did obviously make a lot of deep plays. He only had 93 catches, but he had 1,400 receiving yards. So that's where you'll get the deep play with that. But again, one of the biggest things with George Pickens is his total EPA, which would be expected points added, which I think is indicative of the talent of a player, was third best in the NFL at total by the end of the season is 138.57 total expected points added. So basically all that wrapped up means he was expected to give his team more points than just about everybody else in the league. And that's based on the routes that he was winning, the balls that he was catching, and what he was able to do. So the only 2 people above him was Puka and JSN.
Pretty good for Black Alec Pierce.
Yeah, right. No kidding. So, I mean, again, very, very talented. My opinion of him is drastically different now, having him played this 1 year in Dallas versus what my opinion of him was on Pittsburgh. So, I think he is a very good wide receiver, and I'm excited to see what happens, whether he stays or goes. I'm excited to track the career of George Pickens for sure.
Absolutely, and I won't get revisionist history. I completely agree. He would not have been my number 7 last year. He might not have even made the top 32. So I agree. I'm not trying to say like I saw this coming a mile away, but I do think people are still kind of sleeping on him because people are still kind of thinking of the character issue and low turnout Steelers George Pickens and not the George Pickens that we saw come out last year. So at number 12, we have a young gun, and so I actually have him lower than everybody here. So I'll speak on this. We have Malik Neighbors. So I have him 18th. Jeremiah has him all the way up in 7th, and David has him at 15th. I will completely admit we have seen flashes of brilliance from Malik Neighbors. With the injuries, and this was the guy I wanted the Chargers to draft over Joe Alt. So I'm not even saying that I don't like him. I just, with the injuries, I haven't really seen enough to rank him much higher. I do think a healthy Malik Neighbors is a problem in the NFL, but I still think there's other guys who I would rather start a team with, even in 2026 going into the year. So that's why I had him 18th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that he's young doesn't scare me off of him. I know he's obviously only done it once because in his second year he got injured after 4 games. But what I saw from him his rookie year was stuff I've never seen before. He played 15 games. He started 13 of them. He had 170 targets. And the thing with that is he's not necessarily a big guy. Again, he's that average that I talked about. He's 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, but he looks a little bit smaller than that on the field. Through those 170 targets, not all of them were good because he didn't exactly have the best quarterbacks throwing in the ball, but he took so many hits over and over and over. And if you watched him play in the fourth quarter, it's like he had the same energy that he did when he came onto the field in the first. He's just, his stamina is unreal. He doesn't matter. He can catch so many balls in a game. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't slow down, and he's getting open. And his getting open is different than other people's. Like, again, with the terrible quarterbacks throwing him the ball, he has to be like open in order to even have a play at that ball, because a lot of the targets also aren't necessarily good targets. So what I saw from him in the rookie year was enough for me to put him up. Again, talking about his baseline is maybe lower than some of these guys, but his top end production, what he's physically capable of doing in a season, I think is better than a lot of these guys that we've talked about. And that's just based on what I saw his rookie year. It took him all of 30 seconds to transition into the NFL before he started dominating.
Yeah, he definitely has a high top end ceiling for his production. Especially, we haven't even seen him and Jackson Dart really get a groove or do much together. So that's going to be like exciting if you're a Giants fan coming this season.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be fun to watch.
Especially if Scadaboo doesn't retire. On to our number 13. So it's our first personal favorite team's wide receiver to show up. And naturally, it's the one team that didn't make the playoffs this year. So we have Chris Olave in the 13th spot. I had him ranked 19th. Jam had him ranked 12th. David had him ranked 16th. He's a great possession receiver. I have him. I had tiers. JMO and David know I love tiers, and he was at the bottom of my second, or I believe it was third tier. So I have him right up there with all the guys that we've named so far. I think it was like 12 to 19. I had all on the same tier. So I don't necessarily think he's much worse than some of the names we talked about, or some of the names that I have ranked slightly ahead of him. I think he's kind of at the end of that true number one guy. I think he's still like, he can go to most teams in the NFL and be their best wide receiver. But I don't think he necessarily, speaking of Malik Neighbors and his top end talent, I don't think Chris Olave's top end, high end ceiling is close to a lot of these guys that are ranked near him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he is going to be another one of those model of consistency guys. The biggest story with Chris Olave, in case you guys don't know him, he's had a lot of really nasty concussions to a point where if he gets one more concussion, he's likely not playing football ever again. Hopefully we don't see a story about him later in life, but he keeps battling through it because he loves this game. This year, we finally got to see him really put his talents on display, especially with Tyler Shook, although he was also getting it done with Spencer Rattler. 100 catches, 1,200 yards, another guy that's right around that 30% mark for target share. So, and again, it's likely because they don't have other weapons. They traded Rashid Shaheed halfway through the season, and they don't have anybody else. But with those targets, he finally was able to deliver on the draft capital that we expected him to deliver on earlier. He was drafted in the same draft as Garrett Wilson and Drake London. So a lot of times these three guys are all put together and clumped together because they were the top receivers taken in that draft. And Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, both coming out of Ohio State, like they produce great wide receivers there. And we finally got a chance to see a little bit more of it in the NFL. And I'm excited looking forward. As long as he can stay healthy, I'm excited to see him play for us and keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I like Chris Olave a lot. He'll definitely benefit this year with having a real quarterback in, and he'll obviously rise through my ranks and I'm sure our ranks as next year goes if he keeps producing the way he has been with subpar quarterback play. If they can get a lot out of Shuck, and he'll benefit from it.
Yeah, that's as long as senior citizen Tyler Shuck doesn't retire.
Yeah, they're both going to retire.
Could be. He's not wearing a Guardian cap, so he's made that very clear.
Tyler Shuck in his second season at age 63.
Correct.
Moving to the next guy, we have, so I'll be honest, when I first saw all of our lists together, there were a couple guys who jumped off the pages and one person just ranks this person so much lower, so much higher than everybody else. This is the first one. This is one that I completely missed on the first stance. So in 14th, we have Mike Evans. Jeremiah ranked him 11th. David ranked him 10th, and I ranked him 27th. So I think I obviously have some things to say about Mike Evans. This is purely looking at the receivers going into 2026. I think it's ironic because last week when we were talking about big free agents, I said how I think Mike Evans can continue to produce for a long time because he is the big body contested catch wide receiver that doesn't necessarily lose everything when they start losing his stuff when they get older. But I do think he's not on the back nine of his career. He's on like the last two holes. And I think he's just not, like, we have some great names we still have to talk about. It's not necessarily a slander campaign on Mike Evans. I just don't necessarily think I would put him above some of these guys we have still coming up, like even like a Cortland Sutton or a Terry McLaurin or a Zay Flowers. Like I have a lot of people obviously over Mike Evans. I'm 27th because I don't necessarily think he can go be a good team's number 1 wide receiver anymore in this league.
You're crazy.
Yeah, I don't
That's
like
the
that at
craziest
all.
thing I've ever heard.
My biggest thing with Mike Evans is, and I get to see him twice a year as a Saints fan, unfortunately, I'm going to keep betting on Mike Evans until he proves me wrong. Throwing everything else out the window. Obviously, his insane streak of 1,000 yards over and over and over and over. And the way that he gets it was always a little bit different. But like you said, it's not any one thing. He just does all the little things correct. And that's why he's going to be able to keep playing at a later age. So for me, until he shows me he can't do it anymore, I'm putting his consistency and his ability above all these guys that maybe had some fluky quarterback play and an upgrade when we didn't expect it, or just a bunch of touchdowns, which isn't necessarily repetitive from year to year, or if they had injuries on their team and that's kind of why they exploded. I'm putting Mike Evans above all those guys because his talent is real. And again, until he proves to me he can't do it anymore, it's like the Derrick Henry effect. I'm just going to keep betting on him.
Yeah, I'm fully with you on that. Because like we're discussing, like this guy had 1,000 yards. Like Mike Evans' floor is a lot of these guys' ceilings that we've been talking about. So it's just tough. Like he's been so good for so long. Like say he's 80% of what he was 5 years ago. Like he's still insanely dominant for what he is at this stage in his career. Because when he's out there, like he's getting all the looks, he can run all the routes. So for that reason, I still ranked him like I rank him at 12 or 11. I still think he fits in that AJ Brown, DK. He's in that kind of bag where he's a veteran, he's savvy, but like you can't sleep on him because he will torch you.
Yeah, 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons until last year, with obviously injuries hampering that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons kind of gets back to my point. Like, right, that's 11 seasons, and then now a 12th that he didn't hit it. So it's his 13th year since that first 1,000-yard season. I don't know if it's his 13th year in the league or his 14th, but he's old. 13th. And we see these guys fall off a cliff. So we're going into the 2026 season, we're looking into who's going to be the most talented wide receiver in 2026. And I have to put him a peg below some of these guys who I think are on the rise. So I get your points. I do. I'm not Jason McIntyre, who forgot and said that Mike Evans hasn't sniffed a Super Bowl in his career, so he should go somewhere other than the Buccaneers. So
yeah, except for the one that he won.
Completely forgetting the Super Bowl that he won. Yeah.
But if he goes to the Chargers, you will say he's the best receiver in the league.
It's not true at all. I wouldn't necessarily want him on the Chargers. So that's
all right. Save that.
Yeah, clip it.
Clip that.
For the money it would cost to get him away from the Bucs, I wouldn't necessarily want him. Because obviously the Bucs are going to make a good offer. They might not break the bank for him, but they're going to make a good offer. So the offer that it would take to lure him out of Tampa Bay, I don't want to waste cap space on that. That's, I guess, where I'm going with it.
That makes sense.
Again, I'd rather somebody who might be there for 3, 4, 5 years, if not more. So it's not necessarily that I don't want Mike Evans in 2026, but I'd rather spend cap space in a different way. Anyway, this isn't a Chargers cap space podcast.
It always is.
To number 15. So I am luckily not the person on the hot seat. We're going to put David on the hot seat with this one.
Do it. I know who it is.
15th, we have, David just mentioned him, DK Metcalf.
Oh, just kidding.
I have him ranked 20th. Jeremiah has him ranked 23rd, and David had him ranked 9th. So at 15th, you think he's the 9th best receiver going into 2026?
Well, I did this as in if I was picking a team with all the receivers, I group him with AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Devonta Adams. I think, well, this is obviously projecting into next year as well. If Arthur Smith stayed with the Steelers, he'd probably be more in the teens. But I think he's still insanely dominant. He just doesn't get the ball as much as he should. It's like the AJ Brown discussion all over again. If you pepper him early, pepper him often, good things are going to happen. And the guy's a beast.
I think,
know this.
Go ahead.
I truly think DK Metcalf might be the most overrated wide receiver of the last 10 years. I think everybody got so excited about him when he was coming out of the combine. He had negative 4,000% body fat. Guy looks like the body of Adonis. He's 6'12". Like I think everybody just kind of overhypes DK Metcalf. With that said, I still haven't ranked in my top 32. I think he's a great wide receiver.
I
I
hope
think
so.
he benefited from being the only option in Pittsburgh. He was never like all that outstanding on those Seattle teams. He was good. He has flashes of brilliance because he's a freak athlete, but I don't think he's a freak wide receiver. I think he's just a freak athlete who plays wide receiver. I don't necessarily.
Yeah.
I think I rated him kind of high at 20th, and Jeremiah, I think you're right there with me because you have him ranked 23rd, and I there were a couple guys I put below him that I could have put above him, and I had him in that tier below Chris Olave that I was mentioning earlier. So I have him as kind of those fringe number one guys.
Yeah, I'm going to echo the same thing that you said. He, if we're talking about physical ability and or whatever physical traits, he's probably in the top 5. But he has it's been too long now where he's not getting the targets that he needs, and part of that is scheme and whatever else, but part of that's got to be talent and ability. Like if he was that good, he would be getting more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in the league, and we've still not seen anything that makes your jaw drop. I mean, his second year in the league, he had 1,300 yards. That's the most he's ever had. And that's it. Everything else is 1,000 and then less than that. He had 2 seasons of 1,000 and then less than that. So he just hasn't done it, and he's been given enough time and grace and talent and everything that goes with it. He's had enough chances, and he just hasn't done it yet. So I have a hard time saying he's going to do it now after all that time having not done it. I love the guy. I think he's a really good guy. He's fun to watch. Like that chase down tackle was one of the most craziest NFL plays I've ever seen. But outside of that, like as a wide receiver, I can't in good conscience put him up there with those other guys because he hasn't done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's like a lot of guys when you look at NFL history that you look back on and you're just like, those are such freak specimens of nature. And it's the Calvin Johnson, Megatron, the Derrick Henry, the guys who just their speed power combo. Aaron Donald shouldn't exist. James Harrison, and he's one of those. But I don't know if there's an extremely talented football player underneath that freak athlete. I think he's more of a freak athlete who becomes a good football player because he's a freak athlete rather than he is a great football player and a freak athlete. And I think part of that was shown in the Manning cast where they mentioned that he runs 3 routes literally all game long.
Yep.
Moving on to the next guy, we have Garrett Wilson. So we have him ranked 16th. I had him ranked 17th. J-Mo had him ranked 14th. David had him ranked 22nd. This is one of those guys who's just impossible to rank. He's been on such a horrible team for his entire career with the Jets. But he's just a talent, and he gets it done with everybody. So I don't know. It's interesting. He's one of those really, really hard to rank guys, but that's kind of where I put him as kind of that middle of the pack,
Yep.
right up there with Chris Olave type. He's a good number one on just about any team, but he's not breaking the bank either.
Yeah, his targets have been unreal. His first 3 years in the league, 147 targets, 168 targets, 151 targets. Last year, he only played 7 games. He was hurt, so that's kind of broke that streak. But he gets a crazy amount of targets, and he plays really, really well. He was definitely in line for a bigger season last year until, if you guys remember, the Jets traded for Devontae Adams to come and play with him. Had that not happened, I think you would have seen a crazy outlier season from him by the end of the year, because that was about mid-year that they traded for Devontae Adams. And from then on, him and Devontae were pretty much even every single game. And by the end of the season, for games played, they looked very close. So that kind of ate into that a little bit. So the opportunity is there. He gets a lot of volume. But again, it's hard to do it because the targets that he's getting isn't necessarily good targets. His first 2 years were with Zach Wilson, and then a very aged out Aaron Rodgers at that point. But he commands those targets because he's that good. He's getting open. He makes the plays. He has great hands. Again, coming from wide receiver U, Ohio State, he's just a very, very impressive guy. And he is the first guy on the list behind Jackson Smith and Jigba for target share. For the 7 games that he played last year, he came in at 33.71% target share. And again, previous years, he's always consistently right at that 30% mark, which is crazy. So he's very, very good. And definitely somebody I would always want on my team. He's not necessarily physically imposing. He's 6 feet tall, 138 pounds, but very, very good player. And if you guys would see him more if he was on a team with a better quarterback for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The only knock on him is, like you said, he's smaller, and I don't know if he's a real one. I think he's a better complement to a one, which is probably why they brought in Devontae. On a good team, like a really good team, he's a good Robin. He's not Batman.
I disagree.
There's one name on why they brought in Devontae, and it has nothing to do with Garrett Wilson. It's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers wanted to throw to him. I don't know. I think Garrett Wilson would be a one on another team. I think you put Garrett Wilson on the Bills, and he's just doing incredible stuff. But also,
I think you put Garrett Wilson on half the teams in the NFL, and he's their best wide receiver by not even close. So
yeah.
Moving on. So we have another repeat team here. So one of those wide receiver heavy teams. In 17th, we have T. Higgins. I had him ranked 13th. Jeremiah had him ranked 16th. And David had him ranked 25th. So he's one of those guys that I don't think we necessarily see a lot of the production. And a lot of that's due to injury and or losing target share to Jamar Chase. Understandably, our consensus number one. Unanimous consensus number one. But he is one of those guys who just your defense cannot forget about T. Higgins. You need to game plan for him almost as if he's that 1B to Jamar Chase's 1A, because he can be a number one on a lot of teams in this league. He's a great wide receiver who can do just about anything, just like Jamar Chase. I think that's what makes that duo so scary, is neither of them is a deep threat. Neither of them is just a possession receiver. They both can do anything on the field. They can make contested catches. They can be a possession wide receiver. They can be a deep threat, both of them. So he's a great do it everything wide receiver that I really wanted the Chargers to get last year, but alas, here we are.
Yep. Yeah, I think put him on a team and you ask him to be their number one. I think he can do it. He wouldn't be a top number one, but certainly is capable of doing it. But I mean, 11 touchdowns last year. Obviously, he was able to get in the end zone even with Jamar Chase and bad quarterback play, or I guess good quarterback play-ish from Flacco. But definitely T. Higgins is a talented guy. I remember he was there for 1 year before they drafted Jamar Chase, and he played outstanding that year, minus whenever he has injuries, which, yes, availability is the best ability. So if you don't have that, it's tough to rank him well, because he needs to be on the field. But when he's on the field, he's uber talented, and especially you put him next to Jamar Chase, it's I think probably very easily the best duo wide receivers in the league.
For sure, they definitely are the best duo.
But yeah, Puka and Devontae have something to say about that.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're probably right there.
I think it's a good argument either way. But
yeah,
I don't think it's runaway best duo.
Fair. Yeah.
T. Higgins, he does have to stay healthy. What I personally, I had him low because I have all of these. I call them fringe guys, the fringe ones. I had them all lower. He's only cracked 1,000 yards twice in his career. Obviously, he's always hurt. What I don't like about him is he had the ability to leave Cincinnati and be a guy, and he chose to stay, and he's content with just being a guy on the team. He doesn't want to be that dude. So for me, that's a big knock. I don't even care.
Yeah, I mean, he stayed for 4 years, $115 million, and it's $40 million guaranteed. So it's not for nothing.
Jamar get 40
Jamar's
million a year. Yeah, but
Jamar's better.
The whole thing of getting signed is you push the envelope of the highest paid. He wouldn't have gotten the highest paid, but you can't throw a contract of a 2 at me and say that's why he stayed, when he could have got a giant bag, but he would have had to produce at a giant level. I don't think he would have got.
That was a giant bag. That was a wide receiver 1 contract.
Yeah, I don't think he would have got too much.
Wide receiver 1. Yeah.
Right. I don't think he would have gotten too much more money to go elsewhere. And at the end of the day, his stats, he knows his stats are going to look better playing for the Cincy team. And if he wants
25?
The what?
The average annual value.
Whatever
It was
150 divided by 4 is.
He got a Stephon Diggs contract, so don't even give me that.
It'd be like 29.
Yeah,
million.
Diggs
that was a year.
23, so it's
That
like
was a year later, though, wasn't it? And
Yeah,
That
but
29
yes,
is a lot different than 23. Give me
Yeah.
$6 million a year, please.
Exactly.
What's
Well-
the delta there?
And again, he at least has a chance, if he can stay healthy or whatever, to sign one more contract or get extended one more time at the end of this. And he's going to be older. So when his contract runs out, he's going to need the stats to back it up. And he's going to get that with Cincinnati versus if he was to be a number one wide receiver for the Raiders or something.
Yeah, he's a loser.
Right.
Next.
Okay. The rookie of the year, Tetaroa McMillan. We have him ranked 18th. I had him 15th. JMO had him 18th. And David had him 23rd. I think he is one of those. He's going to be one of those do-it-all jackknife or Swiss Army knife, not jackknife. Swiss Army
Yeah, there
knife
you
wide
go.
receivers in this league. Being able to kind of be that team's number one that can do anything on the field. Again, there's not that many of them that can do it at a high level. Obviously, we're talking about the top 32 NFL wide receivers, so I've said that phrase quite a bit about people who are kind of can be a possession wide receiver, a deep threat, contested catch. And he's just one of those. He's a dog. He plays every route so hard. And you can say that about everybody, even to George Pickens. George Pickens gives up on routes. I have,
For sure.
granted, it's only 1 year, but I haven't seen Ted McMillan give up on a route.
Yep. And it's all about, this kind of comes down to how you rank rookies and younger guys and whatever. But again, playing with Bryce Young and doing the things that he's doing, it was very impressive. Like, yes, he was the number one receiver drafted, so he should be doing this, but he wasn't drafted with people thinking he was going to be Jamar Chase. And for, people who don't follow it too closely, especially rookie wide receivers take a little while to kind of come into their own in the league. It's usually somewhere around the back third of their first year, their rookie year, that they kind of start to break out a little bit. That's where Amon-Ra was and people like that. So people have to understand that Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons and Pukas, those are outliers of all outliers. Like, that doesn't ever happen. So don't ever compare anybody to that. But compared to the average wide receiver rookie, he came out and was able to do all this pretty early on and carried it through the entire season. Another guy that had over 500 routes run, so he was always on the field. He managed to get over 1,000 yards, which, again, for a rookie, I know we have the extra game, but for a rookie, it's very impressive. So there's nothing that I saw in his profile that makes me think he can't get better and will get better, especially even just in the offseason.
Yeah, I think he will get better. I definitely knocked him for being a Panther and playing with Bryce Young because I think he's at his ceiling already. And I also knocked him because he's only had 2 games where he's gone over 100 yards. So that obviously plays into just like his growth. Like, he's obviously learning and stuff, but he has a long way to go. But I could see his like ceiling being like Mike Evans. Sorry, Bill. Which is like a great ceiling. That's a great comp for like his abilities.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I wouldn't put it as a bash to say someone's ceiling is Mike Evans, but I don't think Mike Evans' 2026 ceiling is past Mike Evans or prime Mike Evans. So I guess that's where I'd go with that. On to the next name. In 19th, we have Terry McLaurin, Washington Commanders. I had him ranked 26th. JMO had him ranked 17th. David had him ranked 14th. I will note that we still have 2 receivers that were ranked top 10 by some people that have yet to be named, which is getting interesting because our next name is 20th. I don't have much to say about Terry. I won't say he's a do-it-everything. He is a possession wide receiver, but a damn good one at that. So over to you guys.
Yeah, deep crosser kind of guy, reliable. The biggest thing that, if you asked me 2 years ago about Terry, I would have ranked him lower. The biggest difference now is having, and again, I know we're talking about talent here, but still having Jaden Daniels really unlocked some stuff with Terry where like he was able to do everything that he did with a bad quarterback. And it was like, okay, now if you're going to get hyper targeted by a better quarterback, what can you do with it? And he played much, much better with it. So yeah, he's a possession guy, but I think this, like, I didn't realize the extent of his talents until I saw a good quarterback throwing him the ball. So I think he's better than I thought he used to be. I think he has the ability to just be the one he's phenomenal. He's not a red zone threat because he's not a big guy, but he breaks off these crazy plays that puts him in the end zone. So one way or another, he finds a way to get there. I love Terry. I love watching him
Me
play.
too.
He's just he's a really good player.
Yeah, like you touched on, playing with Jaden Daniels definitely helps his game. And another thing with him too is like he's always complaining about his contract. Like every year, you always hear something. So it's like if he's paid, he's healthy. Like he's insanely dominant. Last time we saw him healthy, he had over 1,000 yards, but he had 13 touchdowns, and the average catch was 13 yards. So he's still getting giant chunk plays, and he's getting the ball in the end zone at the same time. So it's telling you he's running deep, and nobody can cover him deep, which is insanely hard to do if you're like having like usually beating double teams to get to that point, and you're still producing at a very high level.
Yep.
Rounding up the top 20, we have Cortland Sutton. I had him ranked 22nd. Jim had him ranked 24th. David had him ranked 12th. So I think he's another good possession receiver. I think he's pretty much that fringe number one guy. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
places he goes, and he's not even the second best wide receiver. But there's a lot of places where he goes, like Denver, and he's their default number one just because they don't have a lot of better options. But I'm not too high on Cortland Sutton. I just think he's kind of a guy in the system.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I think that he made me want to throw up there for a second. Yeah, I think he's just a guy. Just over 1,000 yards this year, just over 1,000 yards last year. 8 touchdowns last year, 7 touchdowns this year. It's just he's just a guy. He is their number one. His again, looking at the box score doesn't do him justice. When you watch him play on the field, he can make contested catches often and frequently, and he does it very, very well. He has phenomenal hands, great hands, and he's not afraid of contact. Lives and dies by plays on the sideline, and he does that very well. He always has his feet in bounds. He knows where he is for the route, and he has really good timing with Bo Nix and pretty much everybody that's ever thrown him the ball. He seems like a guy that most quarterbacks like throwing the ball to and trust throwing the ball to. I just don't think that he's better than a lot of these other guys. David?
Yeah, I had him higher because he produces, all these guys produce. He's an insane freak. He's 6'4". He had 7 touchdowns last year. He had 74 catches for 1,000 yards. He's not getting like these 100 catches seasons like a lot of these guys are, where they're just getting peppered with targets for their 1,000 yards. I think what benefits him for this coming year is another year with Nix, another year with Sean Payton. I think they're all kind of new. This whole offense is kind of just finding its groove, and I think it only is going to help benefit all of them the longer that they're in the system.
Yeah, and to speak towards, what they're building over there with the Broncos, like on that Broncos team, he ranks number 7 in that total EPA that I was talking about earlier. So he does a lot for his team. And just as far as like, yet again, talking about routes run, he ran the 3rd most routes in the NFL. And again, the reason that that's important is because, like you talked about, Bill, you have a guy that is just every play in, play out, running down the field. You might get the ball, you might not. Chances are you're not going to, because that's just how it works. So to be ready when that opportunity comes and to have your head in the game, to make those contested catches and to do those things, he's definitely a dog.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So we got a few speedsters coming next, 4 in a row. So I'm gonna say let's make like that and try and be a little bit more expedient as we get these answers in, because I know we're going a little long, but I think we're having some good conversation. We have some definite interesting things coming up. So
Yep.
21st, I'm a lot higher on him than you guys are. David, you had him spot on the money at 21st. I had him 14th. Jeremiah had him 27th. It's Zay Flowers. So I think he is such an explosive athlete. So like I said, we got 4 speedsters coming up. I think he's explosive. He put together a great year this year. He's young. I think he's 25.
Yeah.
And so just like looking into next season and seeing what he did this year, like I think the sky's the limit with Zay Flowers, so long as he can stay healthy. Just because he's one of those small guys, and you know how they like getting hit over the middle. But I'm apparently a lot higher on him than you guys are. I'm a lot higher on the next guy than you guys are too. But he's explosive, and I just think there's that.
Yeah, I think the
Dave,
problem
you
with
wanna
him
take it?
is we haven't mentioned a name yet. I don't want to mention him until we mention him, but he's like a Walmart brand of X receiver. So
He's coming up in 2 slots if
okay.
I'm reading you correctly.
Yeah, probably. Like he just really at the end of the day, he is good. They're all good, but he's just really undersized. He disappears in big games, and the ability of Lamar Jackson to extend plays doesn't always contribute to the production of Zay Flowers. Like you think a speedy small guy will be able to always get open, but it's not always the case.
Yeah, I think that, and again, this is coming from a fantasy football perspective. He has some explosive games. Like last year, it was the first game of the season against Buffalo. He had like 143 receiving yards, which is great, and that did not a whole lot after that. He only had one other game where he went over 100 yards. So he's inconsistent in the sense of like, I don't think he's inconsistent because of him. I think he's inconsistent because of the scheme and the quarterback. But I'd like to see more out of him because he's one of the guys that will certainly disappear throughout a game. You'll finish a game and he only had 2 catches, 3 catches, whatever. Somewhere down the line in the season, he'll make up for it by having an 8 or 9 catch game, maybe. But for the most part, it doesn't typically happen with him. And again, I want to rank him higher, but I need to see more involvement from him because I'm guessing that it's more of a scheme thing than a talent thing. But as I've seen it so far, I think that he is just, again, he's good and I want him to be good. He's just not quite there for me. I think that he's like a worse version of Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice does everything he does, but better.
That name's coming up too. I think he is, so just to round this out, I agree with you guys. He needs to be a little bit more consistent, but he did have 86 catches this year. So for somebody who's not getting open a lot and is a small, speedy receiver, that's a lot of catches for that. Granted, he is the number 1 in that system. But there aren't a lot of guys, I think, that can combo this in this league where you have 86 catches on the year. But then you have another game where you have only 4 catches for 138 yards, and he's one of those guys that can do that. He can catch a lot of balls in some situations, but he can also just be that Deshaun Jackson a couple times a game, break off a couple plays because he can take the top off of defense. But on to the next one. This is a guy I have in my top 10. I have him at 9th. Jeremiah has him at 25th. David has him at 30th. And this is back to the Jalen Hurts slander. Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith is so underrated because of the system he plays in. He's explosive, but I think he's a lot more dependable than a lot of explosive guys in this league. I think he's closer to that prime Tyreek Hill dependability, as in he's always open. He's a good route runner. He's not just fast, and he can get it done. I think he also didn't suffer from that AJ Brown drops scenario that AJ Brown did because that offense wasn't throwing the ball a lot. Looks like we lost David.
We'll be back with a message from, no, we already did the sponsor. We'll figure it out. All right, everybody. It looks like we are having some technical difficulties due to the snowstorm that we're getting right now. But we will pick this up. We were talking about Devonta Smith. My take on Devonta Smith is he's definitely a solid wide receiver. I don't think I've really seen him run too many routes outside of a little hitch or a go route, but like you were saying, every time he runs a go route, it seems like he's coming down with the ball. I feel like I've never not seen him catch a ball or at least get some kind of pass interference call or whatever the case may be. So there's a good possibility that I'm ranking him too low just based on the quarterback play that we saw last year, which was, as you talked about, so atrocious. He's just not, they're not able to get him the deep ball the way that he needs to get it to be successful. I will say again, for a deep ball guy, like he does exactly what you would expect. His catch totals are somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 1 year he had 95, but he's getting 1,000 yards even with that. The biggest thing was like last year we saw him play only 13 games and he had 8 touchdowns. This year we saw him play all 17 games and he only had 4 touchdowns. But again, that's likely probably due to the quarterback play, not any kind of fall off on what he's bringing to the table. So I do like Skinny Batman, as they call him, the Slim Reaper. He is, for somebody who's listed at 6 feet tall and 170 pounds, he should be getting bullied quite a bit, and he just finds a way to get open on these routes anyway. So I will give him that. He's definitely a talented guy. In I don't think that he has much of a route tree outside of those deep plays, but when you do it that well, you don't really need to. So I get the ranking and I get the disparity.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can even be a little bit of a possession receiver at times. He runs a really good in route. I'm not saying like the route itself is special. I'm just saying he's got some good production out of running kind of that 7 to 10 yard in or dig route. And he can do that. He can take those hitches. He can do some screens too. He can be a decent possession receiver. I think we just don't see it a lot because he plays alongside AJ Brown with the
Mhm.
awful quarterback that is Jalen Hurts. So I think you see a
True.
lot of the possession and contested catch, like normal, I'll say normal, like traditional throws go to AJ Brown, and then that's kind of why you see Devonta Smith as the deep ball guy. But I think he can do a lot more than that, and he's proven that in spurts. Again, it's just
Yeah.
hard when your quarterback's throwing for 120 yards every game, and AJ Brown is one of those other mouths to feed.
Mhm.
Moving on to the next name that we would say, this will be a little bit of a teaser. So as Jeremiah introed, we're having some connectivity issues because of the storm. David has completely left us to finish the show as a duo. The next name on the list is somebody I didn't even have on the list, and David had ranked number 6th. So I think he needs to be here to talk about that. So we will begin next week's show with a part 2 or a part 2 of the wide receiver rankings and that name. And I will not let up on David with that one because that is a crazy ranking for the name that I'm looking at.
Can't wait.
So it's not 2015 anymore, Toto. But so let's just transition over to hot topics. JMO, what hot topics do you have?
So probably the biggest piece of NFL news earlier this week, we saw the passing away of Rondell Moore, NFL wide receiver, and it seems to me like we don't want to obviously say anything out of line or have some incorrect news, but the so far appearance of it appears to be linked to some mental health issues, unfortunately, and it's one of those things where we look at these guys and we scrutinize them so much, and we watch them play on Sunday, and like, yes, these guys are entertaining us, and we judge so heavily based on how they're doing for fantasy football and stuff like that, but these are humans at the end of the day. And I hope that the NFL is doing more to make sure that these guys are taken care of. And just like a side note, as us as humans, like, make sure you're checking in on your friends anytime that you have a chance to lend an ear or maybe talk to somebody when they need it. Take that opportunity, because you never know when you're not going to have it. So that's kind of a big deal there. And obviously, we've seen the NFL has gotten better over the years, especially with all the information and news that we have about CTE and the effects of that. I think that they're doing a good job, but they still have a little bit of a way to go to make sure that they are protecting these players long after what we see on the football field. And kind of with that goes into another thing that kind of along the same lines for hot topics is, um, with this sport being so dangerous and so difficult, not just to navigate as far as the money and the fame, but the actual physicality of it. If you guys have any kids that are playing football or starting to play football, or you're not sure about whether you want them to play football, um, it's really important to make sure that the coaches are talking to these kids about the right way to play the game. And even though it is a collision sport, you want to try and be as safe as possible, which that all comes down to technique as it pertains to tackling and where to have your head and body, and what you're trying to accomplish. You're not trying to hurt the other person, you're just trying to tackle them, and you don't want to hurt yourself in the process of that. So I think there's been a lot in the United States made about making sure that youth coaches specifically are doing the right thing to teach these kids how to do that, give them the right equipment to do it, so that they are not putting themselves at risk later in life, especially if they do move on to college and maybe even the NFL. You want to form those habits early. Um, Bill, obviously you played football. It was a little bit different when we played. I think it's a little bit better now, but like, something as little as like, your mouth guard fell out. Oh, well, I can still play this play. that's not a thing anymore, and for good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And David played too. I know we kind of talked a little bit pre-show about this segment. Just and how crazy just some of the advancements and some of the changes have been since we played. And it's scary to some degree because we were talking again before the show, like we were taught kind of proper form to tackle. David and I made the joke about one of our coaches used to say, "Bite the football." So you're trying to keep your head up, trying to meet that football, which also helps punch the football out to hopefully get some fumbles. But when you're tackling, which also teaches you to go through the player with your shoulder, right? So while I'll say we were taught that, we were also out spearing left and right with the crown of our helmet, things that you see in the NFL. Thank God they're calling flags for now. Although, honestly, I would hate to be a defensive player in the league right now because you see running backs do it all the time and they're lauded for it. And then you get helmet to helmet hits when the running back running with his helmet right over his shoes. It's like, what are you supposed to do? All there is a helmet and a knee. So it is interesting. I'd like to see a little bit more offensive leading with the helmet be called, at least at the grander stage of the NFL, because then it really needs to start there to then trickle through. A lot of high school leagues, high school or Pop Warner or college, they usually look to the NFL to start making those mandates, and then they'll kind of which is backwards, you would think. Like in hockey, you're not allowed to check in high school, and it really should be that those rules start on the way up. But it's not that way, and we were kind of taught. We were that last era of, I feel like, grown man football, even at Pop Warner and high school levels, which probably isn't the way we should have been coached. So it is a little interesting, but yes, please make sure the coaches for your teams are practicing safe techniques. Concussions are no joke, so please make sure. It's not cool to be seeing stars and your coaches ushering your star player back in just because they're the star player and it's going to help the team win. Like at the end of the day, I'm as competitive as anyone, but at most these are high school sports. Like it's not worth risking your long-term health over.
Agreed.
So I completely agree. And the Rondale Moore passing, that's sad, and it's just awful to see, especially someone so young. Just crazy.
Agreed. Moving on to something a little bit on the happier end. So the other hot topic to bring up, I would say, is obviously the United States winning gold in hockey against Canada. That was fantastic to see. It's the first time that they were able to win gold since the Miracle on Ice in 1980. It was a really fun game to watch. I hate that I had to watch it at 8 a.m. Kind of ridiculous. I understand that they were playing over in Italy, but the Canada came in as the number 1 ranked team. The United States came in as the number 2 ranked team. You kind of knew within reason who was going to be playing these games, and you probably could have planned accordingly and made it a little bit better. But either way, I made sure I was up and ready to watch it. It was a really fun game to watch. I think that like we got the physicality. We didn't get the same fights and everything that we had last time, but outside of that, we had some really good physicality. We got to see Matt Boldy started off with the first goal for the United States. Canada was able to come back and tie it up, and then Jack Hughes scored the final game, the game winner in overtime after getting smashed in the face with a hockey stick earlier in the game and chipping his tooth, which is just so hockey. I love it so much. And then, interviewing him after the game, they were talking with him, and he didn't even look or mention it whatsoever. He's just, I'm so excited to be here and play for my country and all this stuff. I love hockey players, man. They're the toughest guys out there in any sport, and it's not even close. They do not flop. They do not dive mostly. And they're just rugged humans, man. So it was awesome to watch that game, to take home the gold, and to just see all these guys, young and old, be a part of something special like that.
Yeah, and it's crazy talking about that Jack Hughes stick. It's funny. My wife had a friend over
and we had it on the TV, and we were just watching, and we were all kind of involved. And I was just like, "Oh, they're checking for blood," and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, hockey is a weird sport where there's some penalties where it's a 2-minute penalty, and then it's a 4-minute penalty if there's blood, and there just happened to be blood, so it was a 4-minute penalty. So it's just such an interesting sport that you're just looking for blood. I know that there used to be players who had to have razor blades in their gloves so they could like go down on the ice and cut themselves real quick just to make sure they still get that
Yep.
call. I'm amazed you introed this and talked all about this without talking about the real key to that game.
The
Connor
goalie?
Hellebuyck was
Yeah.
unbelievable. Canada was by far the better team.
Yes.
You factor in the 5 players on the ice. Again, another weird thing that I had to explain to my wife and her friend is when you're talking about how many players are on the ice, you're talking about everyone other than the goalie, even though the goalie's on the ice. So like,
Right.
oh, overtime's 3-on-3. Does that include the goalie? No. Why?
No.
I don't know. That's just the way it is.
Because
Oh,
yeah.
both teams are down a skater because of penalties. Oh, it's a 4-on-4. But there's
Yep.
5 people on the ice. Yeah. Just one of
Yeah.
those weird things that you don't really notice until you're teaching
Yep.
someone else about it. But it's interesting because I haven't really watched a lot of hockey the last few years. So Connor Hellebuyck, I was like kind of familiar with the name, but I was just like, interested. So I looked him up. He won the Hart Trophy, which is the league MVP last
Yep.
year, which as a goalie is just such a rare thing to do. Only 2 people have done it since the year 2000, and those are Carey Price and Jose Theodore.
Yep.
Some big names there.
For sure.
And like all the names that have won it before then. I mean, there was only one other name that won it before the 60s, and that was Dominic Hasek. So like only big name crazy seasons to it.
Right.
So he absolutely stood on his head today. Like it was insane.
Yeah,
and
98%
Canada
save
outplayed him.
percentage. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And yeah, I mean, he saw 42 shots. He saved 41 of them. He did phenomenal. And I must admit, towards the end of the game, when the Hughes penalty was running out, and then we got a high sticking, I was like, okay, we have this 40 some odd seconds of 4-on-4, and then Canada's going to have that minute left plus whatever momentum they have for the rest of the game because there's only a few minutes left in the game at that point. I did not think that we were going to win the game. I was like, I don't even know if it's going to go to overtime. Like they're going to have a minute long penalty, which by the way, I don't think we were able to clear the puck out at all. I'm pretty sure the entire minute was spent in our zone, which is terrifying.
We couldn't clear the puck out when we like had regular 5-on-5. Like it was insane how often Canada just controlled the puck in our zone.
Yeah.
All game long.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, I didn't, there was a time there where even when it was tied, I was like, I don't know about all this. And then obviously like the pucks had to roll the right way. The double doink that we had was sad to see. I mean, hitting it off 2 out of the 3 crossbars is pretty crazy and having it not go in. But then on the Canadian side too, there were so many loose pucks in front of the net that could have and probably should have gone in and was just nothing but luck as to why it didn't. I mean, Charlie Coyle had a save, which is crazy. I mean, not Charlie Coyle, Charlie McAvoy. So, you know, obviously they were doing whatever it took to win the game, and ultimately they did. So I agree. It felt like Canada was the better team, but we pulled out the win, and I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun to watch. It was fun to kind of the feeling you only get during the Olympics, where it's just like, yeah, Team USA, like, woo, get so patriotic for no reason. And I feel like it happens once every 2 years, only at the Olympics, and only for student sports. I was watching 4-man bobsled right after, and I did not have the same same patriotism, and that wasn't just because we were 11th and 12th in that finals, and Germany was 1, 2, and 4. So apparently they have a really good 4-man bobsledding farm over there. But that's all I really had for hot topics today. I have free agency update here. There's really not much going on. There's like some cuts, like Tyreek Hill getting cut. I know the Chargers cut Mekhi Becton, which nobody else really cares about. But there's just kind of some of those cuts that we saw coming. I see people shocked at the Tyreek Hill cut. I'm not after that.
Nobody should be.
Cap hit. Like, yeah, you really should
flipping off the field and like just being so excited that he got hurt and he doesn't have to play for the team anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tua's not going to be the quarterback there next year. So like they have a lot of holes. They're in complete rebuild mode, which will help contribute to cupcake seasons for years to come for the Patriots. But I don't know. I don't really have any major free agency updates this week. I feel like once some of the chips start to fall, we'll start seeing that ball roll down the hill. But right now, it's really not progressing at any speed to
Agreed. And a lot of the negotiations for free agency aren't going to start until the first or second week of March as well. So there's a lot of stuff that can't even happen, or discussions that can't
Right.
even happen. So, yep, I agree. I've got nothing to add for hot topics.
Okay. So our next two segments on the docket were supposed to be Master Debater and David's Cookie Corner. I was going to be the judge for Master Debater. However, we don't have two contestants, so we can either run it with Jeremiah and me still as a judge, in which case I win, and now I'm 2-0 and you're 0-2. But I don't know if that's, strictly speaking, a great idea. And we also can't really do David's Cookie Corner because, again, I try not to really pay too much attention to all those conspiracy theories. They would get in my head and waste too much of my very limited energy that I have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Fair.
So I think we're just going to jump straight forward to anything else. Jeremiah, what do you have?
All right. So my anything else today, and I know I'm going to make some people mad with this, and I don't care. Privacy screens on your cell phone. They're all sketchy. You're all sketchy people for using them. I don't care what your excuse is. It's sketchy. And you can do that, right? We live in America. We live in a country where you can do whatever you want. Just own up to it. You know what I mean? Just say that you're into some weird stuff, or you do some stuff you're not supposed to, because the reality of it is the only reason that you have a privacy screen is to, number one, look at videos, and you don't want anybody else around you to see the videos you're looking at, which is weird. What are you looking at? And number two, when you're trying to hide stuff, or you have, you get that extra split second to go off of that page or text message or whatever onto another one, which is sketchy behavior. So again, if you do it, just admit that it's sketchy and move on. I've had many people tell me, oh, I don't have it for any particular reason. I just happen to have it. And it's like, okay, well, so maybe you buy it once, even on accident, you buy it once. I crack my screen, like whatever screen protector I have on there, 5 or 8 times a year. Like, I go through so many of them. So if you accidentally bought one, you probably already broke it, and then you bought another one. So I don't think that there's again, do whatever you want. Just own up to it. Like, it's sketchy behavior, and you're a sketchy person if you have a privacy screen.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't have much to add. I'll be honest, in the circles I run with, privacy screen isn't a word that I hear all that often. I know what it is, but like I can't name anyone that I know that uses a privacy screen, at least that I know.
So my biggest thing with that is, like, people, obviously I work next to a lot of people all the time, and it's always like, here, check out this video on my phone, but then I have to grab it from them and stare at it straight on
from
to
a
do
very
that. So it's
specific angle, yeah.
Exactly. If you're the kind of person that loves to share memes and videos in person, don't have a privacy screen. That's so ridiculous.
Again, I don't know anyone who does it, so I've never ran into that specific issue. But
fair.
It seems like we're hanging out in different crowds.
Yep.
You like crowds, I don't. So I guess that's probably part of the issue. So, moving on to my anything else. I don't know exactly what is catching up in this camera screen, but if you look to it's my lower left, so it's probably lower right to most people, there is a cage.
Yes.
So my wife is a teacher, as we mentioned. It is February vacation week for New Hampshire students, and my wife thought it was a good idea to bring home a hedgehog for my son, who is 3 years old. I was all about it. I also think it's a great idea. Now, with that, I would have thought, I knew very little about hedgehogs. I'm like, oh, this will be a really fun pet to like have and be able to play with and all that fun stuff. The thing just hates you. Like, I don't think I've ever met an animal that hates humans more. It's very lucky that it doesn't really bite, but I mean, if I were to go back here and take the towel that it buries itself in off of its head, it makes like a hissing noise. that is like very much get the hell away from me.
Mm.
And it pretty much does that whenever you touch it or look at it or think about looking at it or think about being in the room that it's in. Unfortunately, I have to record it in the room that it's in. It's still very cute. I like playing with it. It does eat mealworms that you feed it, but that's
Yep.
because it likes food. But I would have always thought like of some of the less traditional pets that you can get, a hedgehog actually would have been pretty high on my list. Not anymore. Um,
Fair.
Again, it's fine. It's actually pretty quiet and all that fun stuff. So it's not like intrusive or anything, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not giving me that pet scratch that I was hoping to get from, I don't know, something that like
Mhm.
you can hold in a ball and it's like happy to sit in your
Yeah.
lap. It is most definitely not. Although it is seemingly starting to grow on my wife. But my question to you and to David, who's not here, was going to be what's like a non-traditional or less traditional pet that you would want, like in a perfect
Yeah.
world? Something kind of easy.
Right. So, I mean, I know a couple people with hedgehogs, and there's only one that's like super duper friendly, which is fun, but also you have to hold it the right way because even though it's friendly, it can still kind of hurt you. So that is kind of funny. So I am very much an animal lover. I would eradicate 98% of the humans on Earth and keep all the animals. I, I mean, I have my favorites. I love dogs. I like horses a lot, but for the most part, I love every animal for one reason or another. My wife made it very clear that we are going to have a household of dog or dogs, and that's it. She does not like rodents. She does not like any kind of reptile. So, but me personally, I understand. I don't know if I would ever do it, but I really like ferrets. I think ferrets are hilarious. I've seen people that keep their ferrets very clean and like they have cat litter in the cages, so it really doesn't smell too much. You'll still get a little bit of it, but I think ferrets are hilarious. They love to take stuff and hide it throughout the house. They're such mischievous little creatures. And the ones that I knew were like very friendly. They would crawl all over you and snuggle and cuddle up and do all those things. So my wife won't even look at it if we go buy one in a pet store. Like she just like will run past it and pretend like it didn't exist. But I personally I love ferrets. I think that they're so fun because even like you get the like I like reptiles. I've got no problem. I'll hold snakes and iguanas and all that stuff, but you can't cuddle them. Like they don't care about you. They just
Right.
want to sit under a heat lamp until they die. But ferrets are definitely are like, you know, people have like domesticated skunks and stuff like that. I mess with that for sure. Like that'd be so much fun. I think that they're furry and they like to cuddle up next to you. Like that is okay in my book. I'm here for it.
Absolutely. Ferrets were pretty high on my list too. And it's a good point you make about the hedgehog. Like even when it's not in a bad mood, like sometimes my wife can get it not in a bad mood. You're exactly right. You still have to pick it up in a certain way, or she just uses like a small dish towel around it because even when it's not like purposely with its spikes out, like trying to be defensive, like it still hurts to like grab with
For sure.
any sort of force that you need to hold it.
Yep.
No, a ferret's a good one. I'm not. I would never get a reptile, but I'm not anti-reptile either. My wife wants to befriend crows, so but wild crows. So apparently you can do that. You can like if you give them maybe it's not shiny things. One thing or another, like you can either give them shiny things and they give you shiny things back, or you give them food and they bring you shiny things back. I don't know,
Big
but
big Edgar
she's a
Allan Poe
biology
family.
teacher. Yes, she's a biology teacher, so she's all about that. And she just everywhere we've gone, she's talked about befriending the crows, and she almost did it in our last house, but then we moved. So now
Well,
she
I
has to
will
deal with a
say,
whole new set of crows.
crows are the smartest bird on the planet, and it's not even close. Do you know what the dumbest bird on the planet is? I thought this was fun. The dumbest bird on
I
the
was trying.
planet is you can take a second to think about it, see if you come up with anything.
I was trying to think of a joke, and I didn't really without going into like old English slang and being like "you're
Oh,
done."
brother.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really
The
have anything, so I'll just pass it back to you.
the dumbest bird on the planet is an owl. And
Hmm.
the determining factor for that is that they're basically blind. They can't see very well. They can navigate the forest, but outside of that, like their hunting techniques are not good. They smash their head into the ground oftentimes trying to swoop down and get something. And just like their habits in general, they don't do anything that indicate any kind of like significant intelligence. But it's just funny because we've always portrayed them as wise. and
Right.
they are, scientifically speaking, the dumbest bird on the planet. So love that.
That's funny. I'm a big penguin guy. That would be my extremely non-traditional pet.
Hell yeah.
Obviously, that comes with having to create the habitat
An
for them,
ecosystem,
which
yeah.
would be extremely expensive to maintain. So it'll never happen.
Fair.
But that's kind of my dream. But I think that'll do that for us. Do you have anything else, JMO, before I close this out?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, that's it for us here on Context Matters. Thanks again to Hyatt Trucks. Check us out on YouTube at Context Does Matter and Spotify and wherever else you can get your podcasts at the Context Matters Podcast. Follow along with us on Twitter at Context M Podcast and Facebook at the Context Matters Podcast, as we will be keeping the reactions and discussion going all off season long and into next season. I'm Bill, and along with David and JMO, thanks for joining us. We will see you next week with David.
Hopefully. Bye, everybody.
Shout out, Brother Seamus. See you next week.
See you then.
Next week.